right, and we're live. Welcome to A Paycheck Away, and I'm your host, Salaam Bhatti. Joining us today is Miles Bruner, somebody who left the GOP earlier this year, and he had a wonderful article that he wrote for the Bulwark, which really goes into the whole timeline of how he saw cracks forming and why he ended up ultimately leaving. So I had a great pre-chat with Miles just about a week or so ago after I saw one of his posts on Thread, and just was had a great conversation. I thought let's bring him to the Paycheck Away audience too. So Miles, thanks so much for joining us today.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Now, Miles, the article you wrote has pretty much gone viral. What's the feedback been like?
Overwhelmingly, it's been very positive. I've been very encouraged by the responses I've seen. People are very welcoming, very encouraging. One response I didn't expect was that some people found um, used my article, what I wrote, and they said that they were able to connect with people, relatives, friends who were in the MAGA movement, and they said it gave them a way to talk to them. So that was really touching. I had never intended that. Um, and there was also some negative feedback, a lot of which I was very sympathetic to. A lot of people saying, "You stayed too long. Why did you stay so long? Why should we believe you now?" And that was something I even addressed in the article. I fully acknowledge I stayed too long. I'm very sympathetic to that feedback. And then, of course, there were also the threats we got primarily on X and and some on Reddit. So there was that as well. But for the most part, it was very overwhelmingly supportive.
Yeah, one of the questions I had was like, why did you stay so long? But when I read through the article, and I saw that you were working for a moderate Republican, and not just a
Yeah.
moderate Republican, but one in California, so it's
Yeah.
a whole different level of moderate. But that was kinda like what I would say insulated you from the MAGA, um, rise that was happening and how you were even pushing back against the MAGA shift while you were working there.
Yeah, it's something that kinda gave me hope, and something that I look back now on is false hope, because working for her, I felt that we could say something and there was a way for us to push back. And we, as a staff, we tried that a few times, but w every time we tried, we always got pushback, from consultants saying, "Don't do it. It's not worth the headache. Don't try," in the very beginning, and then when you did get elected, it's like, "Just go along with it." Um, so there was always that hope that maybe one day we could, but yeah, it never came to fruition.
So we are at a really interesting moment in November where Thanksgiving is coming. And when Thanksgiving comes, that means people of all different political spectrums come to that family table to have turkey together. And we always see on social media like the anecdotes of, oh man, I can't believe my uncle said this, or I can't believe my granddad said that. So when it comes to this moment in American history, based on your experience, what advice do you have for people who are gonna be at the table with their MAGA relatives?
Yeah, that's something even I struggle with. Because yeah, I have never personally been MAGA, and so it's something I struggle with in my own family. And I would say approach any conversations you have with MAGA relatives. One, if you don't wanna talk about it, there's always the option of just not talking politics at the family table, just ignoring it and just talk about regular family life. But if it's something that they force upon you, again, you can always walk away, um, but just try to approach it with, some level of understanding and compassion. Because you for the most part, what they're people in the MAGA movement, they're only getting information from one source. And, like, it's something they're inculcated in every single day. And so yeah, and so just trying to approach them with compassion, don't try to be combative because 'cause you're only gonna make it even worse. So I would just try to say, I understand, especially with family. I would just advise, at least at Thanksgiving, just try to ignore it and talk about things that you guys have in common. Talk about family, talk about friends, that kind of stuff.
Okay, that's fair. But there might be somebody who says something you just wanna, like, oh, get it. So,
Yeah,
you have and I think that's an important point. You weren't MAGA. You were a Republican. You were a Republican since, your high school days?
yeah.
About
Yeah,
early 2000.
I was a Republican going back to the Bush years. I started in when I was a junior in high school.
Okay,
So, yeah, going all the way back up into, personally, I was Republican until about 2015.
okay. Wait, you were Republican until 2015?
Yeah, personally, I voted Republican up until 2015,
Oh,
yeah, and I continued to work in the Republican Party after that.
wow. How many are there like you? You think there's a lot in the structure right now?
That's hard to say because when you're in the movement, you really don't when you're working in, the Republican Party or any of these agencies, you really don't share your personal beliefs.
Okay.
You don't it's not really talked about in, when you're on a break or you're at lunch, that kinda stuff. It's very rare. Um, all you really talk about, is what's working, what copy is working, what's getting engagement, what's motivating people. In your private time, you're just talking about family, friends, you're talking about the latest movie that's out. So it's very rare to really discuss your personal beliefs. Um, every now and then, some stuff does break through. You do kinda get hints about how someone personally believes. They're mentioned something maybe about the Dobbs decision. You'll see an eye roll from someone, or
Mhm.
someone will walk away, during a discussion of a sensitive topic. So there are hints that there are people like that. And I would say most of the people who are very uncomfortable are the older generation. The people who
Have
came
been
up
against for
in the
the
ranks from like Reagan, Bush Jr., Romney, those people who came up in the Republican Party, they're most likely to find what's going on the most abhorrent. Um, but the younger people, the people who started college, who came of age when Trump was just coming into power, they're the people who are most likely the true believers. They're the ones who have been inculcated in this. And that's why I tell people when that texting scandal broke, I wasn't surprised at all. Like it's something that we saw coming. If you had any experience in this field going back to at least 2015.
Now, one of the things, you mentioned was that it seems as though Republicans have given up the working class, and this was something that Trump heavily campaigned on to attract his
Yep.
campaign to them in 2024. But tell us a little bit about that. You know, our audience is focused on living, is focused on the empathy for those who are living from paycheck to paycheck. We ourselves who may be living paycheck to paycheck. So, what was
Mhm.
that? Trump was able to grab the paycheck away audience, not our paycheck, but the
Yeah.
people living paycheck away. So, why? How was that possible? And what have you seen in how the Republicans have given up that class?
Yeah, I mean, that was something, especially in 2024, we just hammered on everything. Less so on fundraising. I will say because my focus is primarily fundraising, we rarely talked about the economy because people who hear about a terrible economy don't want to donate. But I will say on the Senate races I worked on, every single thing. We always think that the Republicans talked about culture issues and that stuff. That's what motivating people. But in the Senate races I worked on in battlegrounds, everything came back to affordability. It came back to inflation. Like we were running daily videos. One of our clients had a daily video out talking about prices at the grocery stores and tying everything back to that message. and they were relentless on it. Um, and recently, I think Republicans have fallen into the same trap that we saw Democrats fall into in 2024. They're basically kind of just brushing off inflation, brushing off the affordability crisis, and in doing so in a way that I find more brazen than the Democrats were doing. It was frustrating to see from my perspective because I wanted Biden and Harris to win in 2024. Like, it was frustrating to see inside the Republican Party. I was like, "Guys, what are you doing? Not talking about this." Like, every time they get a chance to talk about affordability, they would just brush it off and say everything was fine, everything's okay. And Republicans are now doing the same thing, except you have a guy in office building a ballroom and having Great Gatsby parties at the same time. So I think we have fallen, or the Republicans have fallen into the same trap that Biden did.
No, so sorry. I would apologize to the viewers. I'm having some technical difficulties on my side of the app, so I'm watching from another device. I see that there are people. In case people have questions, please feel free to share in the chat, and I'll just have to look away because it's not working on my phone up here. So if you have questions for Miles, please feel free. We have him for about another 15 more minutes. And Miles, one of the things you also mentioned in your piece, I was blown away by, but the fact that you had originally been pro life and then you ended up
Yeah.
shifting that, and that's also a big point of
Yeah.
a big issue within the poverty space as well. So tell us a little bit about your journey going from pro life to pro choice.
Yeah. As a kid, I saw stuff in black and white. So when I first became a Republican, I was very pro-life. I really can't justify why I was pro-life at the time, but
Well, was it upbringing? Was it who you were surrounded by?
not really. Like, I grew up in a pro-choice family. I think it was more identity. Like, I was a Republican when I was a kid, so Republicans were pro-life, so I was pro-life. Um, and as I got older, I got into college. I even in 2015, 2016, I became more pro-choice personally. Um, but it was something I never voted on. And again, I know this is 100%. I had a very privileged background. I had the luxury of not being able to focus on it or really pay attention to it or make it the primary reason issue I voted on. So I fully acknowledge that. Um, and it really didn't hit close to home to me. Not even after the Dobbs decision. The Dobbs decision happened. I was like, "That's unfortunate," but again, it was something I had the luxury of ignoring. Um, but it wasn't until, like, my wife and I had a miscarriage, shortly after the Dobbs decision, and all of a sudden, it became very real. Luckily, we had healthcare, we had a support system in place, but you read into it, and if things were just slightly different or we were in a slightly different place, we wouldn't have had that support. And knowing that there are people in the country dealing with what is an incredible tragedy, like, it was very hard for several months, and knowing that people have to deal with that tragedy and then not have the support of the medical community behind them, I just found, unfathomable.
Mm.
And so it became something it was one of the major turning points, on my path to ultimately leaving the party.
Now, you said you had the luxury
Yeah.
of not having it affect you. Like, what does that mean?
It means, 1, I'm a guy. I never had to think about it. I never had to really think about it too hard. And so it's just something I never looked into. And so I I know I came at it from a very privileged background, and again, I know it's always the criticism that you don't change your mind until it personally affects you. And in this case, it did. At least my focus on it.
Right, and that's exactly what I was thinking, like, people often say one of the things that, with Republicans one of the issues they have with Republicans is that they don't care about something until it happens to them.
Yeah.
That might even just be human psychology in general for a lot of other types of folks too. So, how has that shifted your thinking on other things that are important to other folks out there that you have the luxury or you don't that don't affect you?
I think that had been primarily the main issue. Like, by this point, I had already been pretty far left, at least personally, when it came to economics, support for LGBTQ rights and the minority voters. So, by that point, I had already been, very supportive of a lot of those causes, at least personally. So it really didn't impact me, elsewhere. So it was really just kind of that one issue that really became,
Mhm,
um was the major turning point. Um, what ultimately got me to turn and leave, though, was, the National Guard and federal agents massed in our streets.
mhm.
So that was the final straw that broke the camel's back for me.
All right. So that's insightful because this is something that, as a white male, you've got the luxury, you've got the privilege. They'll never go after you. They're gonna go
No.
after this guy, right? And so
Yeah.
that's awesome. I'm really happy to hear that. That's something that was the straw that broke the camel's back. Uh, so when it comes to opportunities for, like, for example, I'm running for Congress. I have neighbors who are Republicans who have been Republicans for decades. I mean, they're like in their 70s, and it's never like our conversations are never about convincing the other, but, about planting seeds.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I think that helped resonate with them was, the party that you joined when you were younger is not the same party anymore.
No.
And so you have the opportunity to make a decision now of how are you going to vote to really alter the course of this nation's future? Are you going to stick with this Republican Party that is full blown fascist? Or
Yeah.
will you look to the Democratic primaries that are coming up next year? And all of these primaries have people from far left to centrist to, well, I mean, centrist is right as well. So, like, you have the whole gamut of
Yeah.
type of candidates that you could vote for in the Democratic primary. Who are you going to
Mhm.
for? Who are you going to want to be the future of this nation? And so somehow they donated to my campaign. And that's really awesome that this message is resonating that, we're not going in a left versus right thing. I don't know about you, Miles,
Yeah.
but I feel like, we've got billionaire donors on the Democrat side. We've got billionaire donors on the Republican side. I
Yeah.
don't, I don't have billionaire donors. Uh, but what it looks like is they're funding, oftentimes one billionaire is funding both, right? Lord of War, right?
Yeah.
And that's something you've seen as well. You've seen the small dollar donations are are slowing down for the Republicans, and it's all more bigger dollars, bigger donors, right?
Yeah, it's definitely getting harder, with smaller dollars, especially when it comes to digital fundraising. I think that for Republicans, they've spent so long juicing like, selling red meat to the base, and, like, it's been, what, 10 years, and it really peaked in 2020. Like, you were printing money, on digital fundraising, with the Republican base. Yeah, I think it's been something that they've been juiced for so long and squeezed that that check is finally coming due,
Mm. It's
with
not
the Re
sustain
what's that?
it's not sustainable to
No,
have
it's
that.
not,
Yeah.
and I think they're struggling to adapt to that, and now they're leaning heavily on large dollar donors, the billionaire class, so I think they've definitely opened up an opportunity for candidates like you who can occupy that space
Mm.
and speak to them and speak to their concerns because they're no longer paying attention to those voters and to those grassroots donors.
It reminds me of The Lord of the Rings, if you've seen it or read it. It wasn't that Frodo and Sam won, it wasn't that good triumphed. It was actually that evil was not sustainable. It
Yeah.
was, Gollum still, like, the ring drove him crazy. I mean, Frodo and Gollum were fighting over the ring. and it
Mhm.
the fight, that evil that ended up sending Gollum into the fires of Mount Doom. So good just outlasted evil.
Yeah, and it's something that we were noticing, like, you constantly had to ramp up what you were saying in your fundraising emails. Like, the next fundraising email or the next campaign had to be even more red meat than the last, and if it wasn't gonna raise the money you wanted, and so I think that can only take you so far until you burn out or you go full fascist.
Right.
So it's there is a logical endpoint to it, and I think we're seeing that right now with the party.
Yeah, first they came for the immigrants, and then they came for this, and then they came for that. Like, that's what we saw in the progression of the emails of who
Mhm.
the scapegoat was, and ultimately, they just ran out of scapegoats until they're gonna start pointing the fingers at themselves, and now we're kind of
Yeah.
seeing that happen where MTG and Trump are going at it publicly.
Yeah, you're that's I think that's one of the reasons you're seeing that civil war is well, one of the reasons you're also seeing Trump is a lame duck right now. And so I think you are seeing a diminished leader of the movement. And so now people are jockeying to fill the void that they know is coming. So I think that's another reason you're kind of seeing that open rift between everyone in the party. And again, you're also seeing the rise of neo-Nazism inside as a faction as well.
Man, for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction, eh?
Mhm.
So, to our viewers, I'm just looking at the phone here to see if there's any questions. If you have any questions for Miles, somebody who has left the GOP as a result of the rise of fascism within the party, the just full out outblown fascism elements taking over, the authoritarianism. If you have Republican family members or friends that you have questions about, like how can I talk to them in the holidays when I see them, or just in general, I think this is a great opportunity to ask Miles questions based on all of his experiences. Now, reminding folks who have just recently joined. Miles was working for a state senator in California who was a moderate Republican. So he wasn't in the MAGA world. In fact, being on the West Coast, he was very far from the MAGA
Yeah.
world geographically as well. And he was pushing back too, and not in order to like, hey, I'm defending Miles here, but it's really interesting. It's not like a black and white as you just talked about.
No, yeah, and that's kind of what I wanted to get into in this piece is just kind of showing people like what it looked like at the grassroots level to see like what staffers in the Republican Party at the lowest levels were dealing with and how paralyzed we were
Yeah,
in our response, because we did try at several points. I give the example, the first time I realized that we were really facing a crisis was the John McCain moment where he said that John McCain wasn't a hero, he didn't respect him. And my boss was a Vietnamese refugee. And so I thought this was the perfect opportunity to create distance and really ingratiate herself with the community and the military community. But our consultant said, we're just going to ignore this. He's going to be gone. And at that point,
thinking he was going to lose the primary, right?
he was going to lose the primary. And why do we want to upset his base? Just be quiet. We don't want to deal with it. At that point, I realized that this was a problem. Like, if we couldn't go after someone attacking veterans, war heroes, w- something was wrong. We were in a whole new era of politics. And so that's when you kind of see the wheels start to come off the bus
Yeah.
pretty significantly.
I think one of the points in your piece that resonated with me was how you were blowing through your life savings. You needed a paycheck. You
Yeah.
wanted to raise a family. And I think that's one of the big issues of our time where we're stuck in this indentured servitude to
Mhm.
employers so that we can have healthcare and
Yeah.
that we can have our basic needs met. But I feel like I wonder, if you went through this, you had to find a job, you had to work these jobs just so you can make ends meet. And this is what you knew. This is what you know. And
Yeah.
this that's student loan debt. What how would the face of America change if we had healthcare for all? And if we had some sort of guaranteed income through a consolidation of the welfare programs, like how could that actually free people from these types of jobs, whether it's a toxic work environment or a job that's creating a toxic America? Like this is the stuff that I think about that keeps me up at night and the type of policy that I want to implement so that we can really free people from these jobs.
Yeah, I tell people that even though I worked for a Republican, like, the minute I became unemployed, like, what saved me was the safety net in California,
Mm.
because they had a very generous unemployment safety net. And so I had the luxury of being able to have several months where I could look for a job, and look for a job that used the skills I had. Um, so just from my own experience with the social safety net, and how valuable that is, because there are several people or there are several states in this country where that just doesn't exist. Um, so just from my own personal experience knowing and it's very flawed. Again, like, I had student loan debt, like, it was that in and of itself was, like, um that was something that was a burden on my shoulders that forced me where I had to go, forced me ultimately to find the job, where I was. So yeah.
Now, when you applied for the safety net, did you apply for all of the programs?
No, it was just the unemployment. That was one that was available to me, at the time. So luckily I had my then fiance, I was able to use, go on her healthcare. So that helped.
Oh, so you had enough
So
income.
yeah. So, but again, if I didn't have that access to healthcare, I couldn't imagine. Like, I probably would have taken the first job that came across. Like, I probably would have looked at Starbucks. Or I probably would have looked at the first wage job I could have gotten
Mhm.
if I didn't.
You know, as
So
somebody who graduated from law school in 2011 into the recession, into the the
yeah,
in New York, I tried applying to places like I couldn't find a job, and I was applying to places like
it's
Starbucks, like grocery stores, and it was like you're too qualified. Like even
yeah.
you couldn't even get those jobs, so it would have been, you got to like take things off of your resume to
There's yeah, the way it's structured now, like the job hunt, especially you see like there's filters with AI, that kind of stuff. Like, it's a struggle for a lot of people. Like, I'm lucky to, so many people have reached out to me, networking wise, like that has been, very, the people have been so supportive, but there are so many people that struggle just because of the way the job search is structured nowadays. So layer that on top of
yeah,
people don't have healthcare, they have student loan debt, and it's not a sustainable system.
not at all, not at all, and it's driving us towards this feudal society where we're beholden to working for these overlords for very little
Mhm.
pay.
Yeah.
I think that's why the 2026 midterms are going to be an opportunity for a revolution in how this country works. You know, we saw what Trump has done these past 10 months, which really just says if we wanted to, we would. If our
Yeah.
government wanted to, it would. So, let's make it happen. If we can go this way in the wrong direction, well, let's go this way in the right direction.
Yeah, and I think focusing on that message, you're gonna see a lot of Republicans peel off, like, just talking like, being super disciplined and, like, laser focused on that issue, and you're already kinda seeing it. You saw it in November, earlier elections, and you're seeing it in polling. Like, there was a polling out today that showed Democrats on the generic ballot were up 14 points. Like, it hasn't been that much since I think it's 2017 was the last time, like, that it was that large of a gap. So I think there's significant room for Republicans to really hammer on that message, not just with their own constituents or independents, but with like moderate Republicans as well.
I think that's a
And
great.
I would say even MAGA voters.
I think so. I think so. I mean, we
Yeah.
just saw I saw reports that in New York, there were MAGA voters who voted for Trump and AOC.
Hmm.
So it's just really fascinating. And some of them report that, they like that they're talking about it. They're telling it like it is. So
Yeah.
that authenticity, authentic candidate is really something that's also helpful.
Yeah, and you're gonna drive turnout because the 2024 saw a significant drop in turnout, and just in November, you saw people turn out for Mamdani in New York, people who didn't vote in 2024. So, yeah, you're gonna reach new voters, and you're gonna flip voters you never had to begin with.
That's right.
So,
All right. Well, we got miles to go.
you do. I think yeah. Yeah, but I think there's the way everyone's people are focusing on it now, on the affordability issue, I think there's reason to be optimistic about the future.
I think we're gonna leave it at that. Miles, thank you so much for your time and for sharing your story and being vulnerable. This is a really personal thing that you did, and we talked earlier. You're an introvert. This is not your nature, but I
Yep.
think it's very important. This is a very important thing you did, and I appreciate that.
Thank you for having me. Really appreciate it.
Be well. Bye.
Have a good day.